In our society, the value of an individual should never be determined by the color of their skin. However, an insidious system known as white privilege continues to shape the destinies of individuals, often regardless of their intelligence, talents, or contributions to society. White privilege operates like an invisible force, exerting its influence over every aspect of life, from mundane interactions to pivotal moments. It's the stark reality that people of color, especially black individuals, are disproportionately targeted by law enforcement, facing harsher penalties or even risking their lives in encounters where their white counterparts navigate with relative ease. It's the subtle biases that create significant barriers for black individuals in securing loans, finding stable employment, and accessing quality education. Even seemingly unrelated areas such as insurance premiums, employment opportunities, and societal acceptance are tainted by this systemic privilege. This pervasive influence extends to media representation, political underrepresentation, and the lack of diversity in leadership positions across various industries. In this video, we strive to illuminate the profound impact of white privilege, shedding light on the harsh realities faced by black individuals and communities. Despite claims of equality, systemic racism and white privilege persist, casting a shadow over us all. To support our cause, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support is invaluable to us. White privilege, also known as white skin privilege, is a societal advantage that benefits white people over non-white individuals, particularly in societies where they share similar social, political, or economic circumstances. Rooted in European colonialism, imperialism, and the Atlantic slave trade, white privilege has historically served to uphold the racial advantages of white people. The term "a white privilege" was coined by activist and scholar Peggy McIntosh in 1988. In her seminal paper, A White Privilege, Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack, McIntosh described white privilege as the unspoken advantages enjoyed by the dominant culture over people of color. These advantages include power, benefits, and opportunities that are distributed unequally among different racial groups, with white people consistently positioned at an advantage. While some may deny the existence of white privilege, numerous instances demonstrate its pervasive influence, hindering the lives of black individuals and communities. One area where white privilege is particularly evident is in interactions with law enforcement. White privilege often determines the outcome of police encounters, with potentially life-threatening consequences for people of color, even in seemingly routine situations such as traffic stops. The case of Philando Castile exemplifies this disparity. Castile, a black man, was fatally shot by a police officer during a traffic stop in Minnesota in 2016, despite complying with the officer's instructions and informing him of his legal firearm. The officer responsible for Castile's death faced no repercussions, highlighting the profound impact of white privilege on policing and racial justice. The influence of white privilege extends beyond individual encounters to systemic injustices that perpetuate racial disparities and inequality. Recognizing and addressing white privilege is essential for creating a more equitable and just society for all. The implementation of the stop and frisk policy resulted in a disproportionate number of black and Latino individuals being stopped without reasonable suspicion, leading to tense encounters and racial profiling. When it comes to handling individuals in mental health crises, there's a stark contrast in treatment between white and black individuals by law enforcement. White individuals experiencing such crises are more likely to receive compassionate intervention, whereas black individuals often face escalated confrontations, as exemplified by the tragic case of Elijah McClain. Despite being unarmed and posing no threat, McClain was subjected to a chokehold and sedated by police, ultimately leading to his death. The disparities continue in the criminal justice system, where white individuals arrested for nonviolent offenses may receive more lenient treatment compared to their black counterparts. Kif Browder's story illustrates this injustice vividly. Arrested for allegedly stealing a backpack, Browder spent 3 harrowing years in pretrial detention at Rikers Island, enduring brutal conditions before his case was dismissed. The trauma he endured ultimately led to his tragic suicide. Moreover, white individuals are less likely to face excessive use of force by police officers during arrests or confrontations, whereas black individuals, like Eric Garner, are at a higher risk of experiencing fatal encounters. Garner's death after being placed in a chokehold sparked nationwide outrage and highlighted the deadly consequences of racial bias within law enforcement. In education, systemic biases and unequal opportunities persist, disproportionately affecting black individuals. Decades of discrimination, such as the Jim Crow laws, have left a legacy of unequal access to quality education. Ruby Bridges' experience as the first African-American child to attend an all-white school in 1960 illustrates the intense racial hostility and discrimination faced by black students. Standardized testing further exacerbates these disparities, with culturally biased tests disadvantaging black students who lack access to preparation resources. Despite criticisms of standardized tests perpetuating racial inequalities in college admissions, little has been done to address these issues. Even in disciplinary measures, black students are unfairly targeted, facing harsher punishments compared to their white peers for similar infractions. Incidents like the arrest of a 6-year-old black girl in Florida for a minor tantrum at school underscore the over-policing and disproportionate punishment of black students. These incidents are not isolated but part of a larger pattern of violence and discrimination against black students. Research shows that black students are often perceived as adults and face harsher treatment in school due to historical stereotypes associated with being black. Addressing these systemic injustices requires a concerted effort to dismantle racial biases and create equitable opportunities for all students. Black students not only endure inferior treatment but also contend with teachers harboring low expectations for their future success. Conversely, white students often benefit from positive stereotypes and elevated academic expectations. The experiences of Malcolm X, a prominent civil rights activist, exemplify this disparity. Despite excelling in junior high, Malcolm dropped out of high school after a white teacher dismissed his aspiration to practice law as unrealistic for a black individual. This illustrates how systemic racism and white privilege shape educational outcomes for black individuals. In employment, white privilege permeates hiring practices and labor dynamics. White job applicants encounter fewer biases and enjoy assumptions of competence and qualifications, evident in the 50% increase in callbacks for CVs with traditionally white-sounding names compared to those with perceived black names, despite identical qualifications. Studies by Marianne Bertrand and Sendel Mainan reveal disturbing racial biases in hiring. Applicants with white-sounding names were significantly more likely to receive job interview callbacks than those with typical black names. This bias persisted even in recent studies, indicating ongoing discrimination against job applicants with black names. Furthermore, black workers face higher unemployment rates and earn nearly 25% less than their white counterparts. Despite laws against discrimination, research demonstrates persistent disparities in hiring practices, with job applicants bearing black names requiring more resumes to secure callbacks compared to those with white names. This underscores the enduring impact of systemic racism and white privilege in shaping employment opportunities for black individuals. They discovered that applicants with black-sounding names received 10% fewer callbacks overall and even fewer from specific companies, despite having comparable qualifications to their white counterparts. Securing a job is not the only challenge. Advancing up the corporate hierarchy is nearly insurmountable for black individuals. White employees often have a greater chance of promotions and consideration for leadership roles within organizations. Ursula Burns shattered barriers as the first black woman to lead a Fortune 500 company, inspiring black individuals globally despite the considerable challenges faced by Xerox in breaking through the corporate glass ceiling. Another critical aspect of labor market inequality is the substantial pay gap between black and white workers. In 2019, the median black worker earned 24.4% less per hour than their white counterpart, surpassing the gap observed in 1979. Even after adjusting for education, experience, and regional disparities, a significant unexplained wage gap of 14.9% remained in 2019, up from 8.6% in 1979. This disparity is more pronounced among men than women, highlighting a troubling trend. Black workers have seen fewer benefits from overall increases in productivity compared to their white counterparts, exacerbating racial wage disparities despite significant productivity gains. Various economic theories have attempted to explain these disparities, including human capital theory, models of discrimination based on personal preferences, and statistical models of discrimination. However, none offer a comprehensive explanation for the enduring racial disparities in unemployment and pay. Despite empirical evidence and historical records highlighting discrimination's role, ongoing debate persists within the field of economics regarding these disparities' interpretation. These instances underscore systemic disparities rooted in white privilege that continue to influence employment practices, job opportunities, and labor dynamics, hindering black individuals' career advancement and economic equality. White privilege in housing and loans significantly impacts access and opportunities, with white individuals more likely to access housing in desirable neighborhoods. Black individuals may face discrimination and exclusion from predominantly white areas, perpetuating racial segregation. Historical practices like redlining denied black families access to loans and housing in certain neighborhoods, exacerbating housing disparities and wealth inequality. Although laws have been enacted to combat redlining, its effects linger. White individuals are more likely to become homeowners, benefiting from wealth accumulation associated with property ownership. The homeownership gap between white and black Americans has widened, with significant disparities in wealth accumulation since the housing boom and Great Recession. When it comes to starting a business, white individuals typically have greater access to loans and financial services, while black entrepreneurs struggle to secure funding, limiting their economic opportunities and contributing to the wealth gap between black and white households. These examples illustrate how systemic racism and white privilege shape housing and loan processes, leading to disparities in access and outcomes, perpetuating economic inequality among black individuals despite their qualifications and financial stability. Privilege in the criminal justice system is starkly evident, impacting how individuals are treated, convicted, and sentenced. White individuals often face less scrutiny and bias during investigations, resulting in lower rates of wrongful convictions. The case of the Central Park Five exemplifies this disparity. When Trisha M's body was discovered in New York City's Central Park in 1989, the swift arrest and subsequent conviction of 5 black and Latino teenagers sparked widespread public outcry. Despite serving sentences ranging from 6 to 13 years, DNA evidence and a confession later proved the innocence of the Central Park Five, leading to their exoneration and a $41 million settlement. Even when convicted, white individuals frequently receive more lenient sentences for similar crimes compared to their black counterparts. The Affluenza case involving Ethan Couch illustrates this privilege. Despite causing the deaths of 4 people in a drunk driving incident, Couch's affluent background was used to argue that he should not be fully responsible for his actions. He received a controversial sentence of 10 years of probation and therapy, sparking criticism and highlighting the systemic disparities in sentencing based on race and socioeconomic status. The case stirred discussions about disparities in the criminal justice system, particularly how race and socioeconomic status influence sentencing and case outcomes. It raised concerns about whether individuals from marginalized communities receive equitable treatment in the legal system. The term affluenza used in the case was criticized and not accepted as a legitimate mental health diagnosis. This case served as a symbol of the intersection between privilege, race, and the legal system in the United States. White offenders often receive lighter sentences compared to black defendants even for similar crimes. For instance, Troy Davis, despite significant doubts about his guilt and recanted witness testimonies, was executed in Georgia for a crime he maintained he did not commit. Calls to halt his execution came from various organizations and individuals, but the state proceeded with it. White individuals tend to benefit more from post-conviction legal reforms, such as reduced sentences or parole, compared to black individuals with similar convictions. For example, Cantoya Brown, a black woman sentenced to life in prison for a crime committed as a minor, prompted calls for criminal justice reform. Her case shed light on the need to re-examine sentencing laws and ensure fair treatment for all individuals, irrespective of race or background.